Hey guys, welcome to our video. We're going to talk about personal injury pattern jury instructions and specifically probably the most common one, which is physical pain and mental anguish. So if you think about an automobile wreck, a slip and fall, a truck wreck, whatever it may be, typically this is going to be present. In other words, the plaintiff is going to say, hey, I had an injury and I had pain and I had mental anguish or emotional distress, and I want to be compensated for that. And that's totally appropriate if that's true. So let's see what the jury instruction actually says. So the judge would say the name of the plaintiff has had pain and suffering, mental anguish, emotional distress, and will have future pain and suffering or mental anguish, emotional distress. And we'll see these are kind of similar words. This is really the critical part, this middle section. And when we do jury trials using consumer statutes, so not talking about a car wreck case, man, we've been doing those for 20 something years, but when we're suing a debt collector, suing a credit bureau, a mortgage company, and we're asking for mental anguish, this is the type of jury charge that we use and that has always been given in our federal cases. So there's no legal rule or yardstick that tells you how much money to award for physical pain and mental anguish. The amount you decide to award is up to you, but it must be fair and reasonable based on sound judgment and proved by the evidence. And then here's some factors that are given. In deciding the amount of the award, you may consider, among other things, the nature, the severity, the length of time that the plaintiff has had this physical pain and mental anguish. And then this last paragraph really is talking about in the future. You should award an amount for future physical pain and mental anguish if the plaintiff has proved that it's reasonably certain. So it doesn't have to be a certainty, it just has to be reasonably certain that the plaintiff will have physical pain and mental anguish in the future. And so it's a common sense thing, but it's important that this is in the jury charges to say, look, there's no rule that says you only get equal to your medical expenses or 3 times your medical expenses, or you can never get more than $10 a day or $1,000 a day. It just says, look, there's no legal yardstick that you can just measure as some sort of formula, but just use your good common sense. What would be fair to compensate the plaintiff? And remember, the idea of compensation is to get the plaintiff back to where they were right before the bad thing happened. So if I've had physical pain in my left knee for 2 years because of the wreck, well then what would it take to compensate me for that? Because I didn't have that physical pain before the wreck, now I have it for 2 years, and maybe I'm going to have it in the future. So what is a fair exchange for that? So we've talked about this with property damage. Just to illustrate it, if my car is worth $20,000 and after the wreck it's worth $6,000, well, that's a $14,000 loss. Now, typically that would be considered total, but I'm just using that as an illustration to say it takes at least $14,000 to get me back to even. Okay. Same thing for physical pain, for mental anguish. What does it take to get me back to even? And that's what the jury has to decide. Now, insurance companies, mortgage companies, debt collectors, whoever we're suing for mental anguish, they hate this because they say, well, how do we know how big it's going to be? Well, you don't, because we don't know what the jury will decide is the fair and reasonable amount. Now, again, defendants, they despise this because they want to be able to say, well, yeah, we break the law, and we know we're breaking the law, and we want to be able to calculate to make sure it's going to be profitable for us. Well, see, this sort of messes up their calculus, okay? Because they're not able to just put it into a formula. And that's okay, because we want, when people are negligent, or especially when they do things intentionally, that they can't just decide, well, we'll make sure that this is completely profitable for us. No, maybe it's not going to be profitable because maybe the particular person that you hurt has a lot of pain, a lot of mental anguish, and that jury awards a large amount of money. I mean, we've had mental anguish awards in the seven-figure range, okay? So these can be really, really big awards. It might be $5,000, it might be $2 million. Just depends on what the evidence supports. So anyway, hope that you find that helpful, and we'll continue to go through these pattern jury instructions for personal injury, and I'll have some commentary on them. And appreciate you watching this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.